Hello, this is Yogeshwar 7000 again, and I'm back on my series on stories from the Puranas today. And today we'll be talking about King Janamajeya and his conversation with the great sage Vyasa. As we know that King Janamajeya was the son of King Parikshit, and Parikshit was the son of Abhimanyu, and Parikshit was ruling Hastinapur as a direct descendant of the Pandavas. And in our earlier videos we have discussed how King Parikshita was killed by the snake Takshak, and to take revenge on his father's death, King Janamajeya, the son of Parikshit, had performed a fire ceremony where he wanted to destroy all the snakes in this world by performing a fire ceremony, having them come and burn in this fire ritual, and how Muni Astik had come to the rescue of the snakes and convinced King Janamajeya not to go ahead with the fire ceremony, and thus he saved the snakes in this world from destruction. So we've been discussing these stories in our recent videos. People who have not watched those videos, please refer to those. And today we'll be talking once again about King Janamajeya in a conversation with sage Vyasa, and he had certain doubts in his mind, he had confusions in his mind, so he was putting forward those questions to sage Vyasa. And the questions were, who is Amba, which Vyasa had just referred to him, and what is Amba Yagya or Amba fire ceremony? Who is Amba? Where was she born? From where did her birth take place? What are the qualities of Amba? What is her form and nature? So that's what King Janamajeya was asking sage Vyasa. He also was asking as to, please explain me in detail the origin of this Brahmand. Brahmand is a Sanskrit word for the universe. And King Janamajeya asked sage Vyasa that I've heard that Brahma, Vishnu and Rudra are the three devatas or the three gods who originated to create, preserve and destroy this universe. So he wanted to know whether these three high-souled entities are independent, or while doing their respective duties they are under the power of some other entity. He wanted to know all these. So he asked the great Rishi Parasha's son sage Vyasa. As we know that sage Vyasa is the son of sage Parashara, that please describe this to me. That's what King Janamajeya was asking sage Vyasa to do. He wanted to know these highly powerful entities, Brahma, Vishnu and Rudra, or Shiva or Maheshwara, whatever you may like to call them, because Shiva and Maheshwara and Rudra are the same names of one entity. So he wanted to know whether these powerful entities, Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, are subject to death like ordinary beings, or they are of everlasting existence, or they are of everlasting intelligence, or they are of everlasting bliss. Are they subject to the pains which ordinary mortals are subject to? Are they subject to time? Where did Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva or Rudra originate from? Do they feel the influence of pleasure, pain, sleep and laziness like ordinary mortals do? Do their bodies consist of 7 dhatus like blood, etc.? Our bodies are made of 7 dhatus. Okay, blood is one of them. Or their bodies are made of something else. Are their bodies made up of 5 elements? As we know that there are 5 elements which constitute the entire universe, the bodies, which is earth, water, fire, air and space. Or they are made of something else. Do they also enjoy objects of enjoyment? So King Janamajeya is asking these questions to sage Vyasa about these 3 gods, Brahma, Vishnu and Rudra. How long is their longevity? Where do they live? And what is the nature of their powers? I'd like to hear this from you, O great sage Vyasa. This is what King Janamajeya has been asking, and this is what we are discussing, the conversation between King Janamajeya and sage Vyasa. To this sage Vyasa replied to King Janamajeya that, O highly intelligent king, these questions like how Brahma was born and how Vishnu was born and how Shiva was born are very, very difficult to answer. And in ancient days, he said, I asked these questions to the great Rishi Narada or Narada. Some people pronounce it Narada, some people pronounce him as Narada. The actual pronunciation is Narada. And as we know that the great Rishi Narada is the Deva Rishi, or he is the Rishi or the sage of the gods. So Sage Vyasa said that I was also very confused. I also had similar questions which you're asking me. And I put these questions forward to Rishi Narada. And Rishi Narada was first very surprised to hear so many queries from me, and afterwards he said, I am going to answer you these questions. And Narada was the knower of the Vedas, or Narada is the knower of the Vedas. He was sitting on the banks of the Ganges when Sage Vyasa asked these questions to him. And Sage Narada asked him to take a seat. So he sat down on the banks of river. Sage Vyasa sat down on the banks of river in front of Sage Narada. And once again he asked him that who's the supreme architect of this universe, or Brahmand as it's called in Sanskrit. Is it eternal or is it temporary? And who's the cause of the creation of this universe? There has to be a cause why this universe has been created. And please answer me and remove my doubts. And Sage Vyasa once again asks or tells Sage Narada that many believe that Mahadeva is another name for Shiva, is the lord of other devas or gods. And some people consider him as the supreme god, the cause of all. He is the source of deliverance to all the people. And he's always auspicious, he's always peaceful in himself, as we know that Shiva is always auspicious and peaceful. And he's the controller of the three gunas, and we know that the three gunas which we are all subject to are Sattva guna, Rajas guna, and the Tamas guna. And Shiva is the only cause of creation, preservation, and destruction. And that is the belief of some. And this is what Sage Vyasa was asking Sage Narada. And some Pandits believe that it's not Shiva, it is Vishnu as the god of all, and praise him like that. It is Vishnu. Some Pandits and some scholars believe that he is the supreme self, he is the lord of all. He is the first person who's called Adi Purusha, and he has no birth or death, and he is omnipresent. His faces are everywhere. He's the creator of enjoyments and liberation to all his devotees. And then some scholars or some Pandits say that no, it is not Shiva, it is not Vishnu, it is Brahma who's the cause of all. And he's omnipresent, and he is the stimulator of all beings. And as we know that the four-faced Brahma is the knower of the Vedas. And according to some, he's the best of all the devas. He's born from the navel lotus of one endless force. Some Puranas say that he's born from the navel lotus of Vishnu or Narayana, or in other words, Brahma is born from the navel lotus of some one and only one endless force. So this is what Sage Vyasa is asking Sage Narada, that these are the thoughts of various scholars. Some people consider Shiva as the ultimate, some people or some scholars consider Vishnu as the ultimate, and some people or some scholars consider Brahma as the ultimate. And I am really confused. So once again, a question was being put forward by King Janamajeya to the great sage Vyasa, to which Vyasa replied that I had the same confusion, and this is what I asked, and these are the questions I put forth to the great sage Narada, that who is the supreme God, and who is greater, Brahma, Shiva, or Vishnu? And he even said to Sage Narada, or when I say he, Sage Vyasa even said to Sage Narada, that some scholars consider sun, Surya, as God. In the mornings and in the evenings they chant his hymns. And there are some scholars who say that Lord Indra is the lord of all the living beings. Lord Indra has got 1,000 eyes. It is Indra, the husband of Shachi. Shachi, as we know that the wife of Indra is Shachi, is the god of all. And he performs sacrifices. He drinks soma juice himself, and people who drink soma juice are his beloved. He is the only one and only God, and he is the only God of sacrifices. So this is a confusion which Sage Vyasa had, and he was discussing with Sage Narada. And he even said, Sage Narada even said, that some people worship according to their respective wishes. Varuna, the lord of the seas. Some people worship Soma. Some people worship Lord Agni. Some people worship Lord Pavana, which is the lord of the wind, or another god. Some people worship Lord Yama, who is the god of death. Some people worship Lord Kubera, who's the lord of wealth. And some people worship the elephant-faced Lord Ganesha, who gives fruit of all the actions, who's the granter of desires of all the devotees, who's the giver of success to all the auspicious things one begins or enterprises. And some scholars say that it is Adi Maya, the great Shakti, the great goddess, the giver of everything, and who is the ultimate. And some scholars say that she is both Purusha and Prakriti, the preservator and the destructor of all of the universe. She is the mother of all the gods. She is the great goddess of this Brahmanda, or this universe. She is without beginning, she is without end, she is present in all the beings, she is everywhere. And she is the Bhavani, as she is called, in various forms of female goddesses like Shankari, Brahmi, Varuni, etc., etc. She is the only one and only one root of this tree of universe. So here Sage Vyasa once again is very confused, and he's asking Sage Narada. He's also saying that the mere act of remembering the goddess destroys all sins, all afflictions of the devotees, and fulfill their desires. The great goddess gives moksha. She is beyond the three gunas, as we just discussed, the three gunas of sattva, rajas, and tamas. She is beyond the three gunas, and still she is a part of them. She rewards the yogis who meditate on her. The best munis meditate on her as a formless, omnipresent entity. She is described in the Vedas and Upanishads as full of light, full of power, full of energy. So he is very, very confused, and he cannot figure out, Sage Vyasa is very, very confused and cannot figure out in the similar fashion as King Janamajeya is confused, and he was asking Sage Vyasa. So Sage Vyasa is just describing that I was also confused, and this is the questions I did put forward to Sage Narada, who was sitting on the banks of river Ganges, and I was also asking him as to whom to worship to, which god, and there are different opinions by different scholars about who is the greatest. And please answer this question, because my mind is thrown into doubts, O great Muni. So this was a little discussion on stories from the Puranas, and this story is coming directly from the Puranas, and we will not be discussing about what Sage Narada answered to Sage Vyasa in this video. We will be discussing that in the forthcoming video as to what was the reply of Sage Narada on the questions put forth by Sage Vyasa to Sage Narada. So hopefully you did enjoy this video, which is coming directly from the Puranas, and it's not out of any published story from the Puranas, either on the internet or on paper. It is coming directly from the Puranas. And just to remind you that all my videos are direct reference to the ancient scriptures, so I will request you to have firm faith and belief in it. And in the meanwhile, I will recommend subscribe to my channel, check out my website, there is a link below, and I will see you with an interesting topic in Vedic astrology or stories from the Puranas in my next session very soon. Goodbye.